Aloha. I wanted to make a quick video in reference to um, the collection of videos that I put together, and also a step off from the last video and to address some questions that have come up real quick. First off, to jump off of the last video or the last couple of videos, really how I approach my expression and my art and my passion is really on like a no strings attached sort of basis. Like I'm doing this for existence, period, and I'm sharing like what I feel and how I understand my reality, because I know if it's available, it'll be able to at least help one individual. Then it might be able to help 2 or 3 other people. So when people ask me, like, what should I do or what should I research, I've said in the past, it's really about what, since everybody is on purpose, everybody has a meaning and has a purpose, then whatever your imagination and your intuition is calling about from your inner space is going to be the best route for you. So if individuals ask me about a certain, like, oh, what should, this and that, I could present some kind of starting points, but that never really feels good for me, because it's really up to the individual to decipher for themselves and pick their own starting point. Because once you pick your own starting point, that will be the most, like, you are your best teacher. So whether you step somewhere and fall or step somewhere and jump, you're gonna be the one who made that decision for you, and you're gonna learn from that experience to the maximum potential, because you were involved from the beginning of that thought process through the imagination to the end process. And it also makes a relationship closer with your higher self. And basically what I wanted to share about, like, how I put all these videos together is mostly about, like, maintaining and making a deeper connection with who and what you are, yourself, your spirit as a whole. So, like, for example, when I tag these videos with flat earth, and I speak on flat earth because that's the most honest representation of, so far, of how I understand this physical reality as the earth plane. So that's one way to reconnect with nature, and also a segue in for some people to connect with, or at least see and observe a sort of creative intelligence. But to keep it more focused, like, for this moment, to expand on the videos and also incorporate the last couple of videos in the questions. So flat earth, for me, how I feel it and see it, it represents a connection with nature, and that represents a connection with spirit, and also represents a connection with your ancestors and everybody on the earth plane outside of the mind control grid. So that's like my biggest understanding, or my biggest drive in realizing this storyline. Everything else is just kind of like side effects to your relationship with spirit as a whole, with your soul, with nature. Everything else has come on top of that in order to distract you from your maximum potential. And this goes all the way down to your human essence, down to your culture, down to your history, down to the storylines you believe to be as your reality. And everything is so intermingled with so-called conspiracy and blatant deception. It's it's really up to the individual to trace themselves back to themselves. And when you do that, there's nothing higher than that, because you are creating something from the inside out that has never been created before. So like when I'm sharing a thought or a moment, I'm like in a relationship with everybody, with the moment, and people can observe that and be a part of that, and they'll either get something from it or not. But at least it's a piece of art is done. So it's out there, it exists. And if I hadn't had stepped out into that space, it wouldn't exist. Just like everybody else has that potential. So there's all these different storylines that are going on at the time. There's the expansion storylines of the individual, and then there's the internal, the expansion storylines of the individual from the internal space, and then there's the external grids that are existing in order for the collective and the individual not to expand themselves and connect with each other. So this goes back to the collective and destructive intelligence grid, to where the destructive intelligence is what we are. The deception grid is based upon the separation, largely separation. The creation, the destructive intelligence grid exists within creative intelligence, underneath the most high essence, for us to experience a reality. So just as you can understand angels as one step down from the most high, you can understand the earth plane as however many steps down from the most high, in order for consciousness to experience itself, for the most high to experience itself through the darkest of the dark and the lightest of the light. What we understand today is like, whatever you want to call it, duality or creative intelligence, destructive intelligence, whatever it is, you have this idea of free will. And individual, you have the choice. When you are born into this experience, you're going to base your reality based upon how you make your choices. And the obvious space of the mainstream and the university system and the public education system is to manipulate your choices, to manipulate your mindset. This is what the pop culture is to manipulate your mindset, to disconnect you from nature as a whole. So when I reference things like cannabis, and I kind of bounce all over the place with everything, I'm really referencing your relationship, our relationship to nature. And that is a direct relationship to the Most High. And that essence is the everlasting spark that is your soul, represented as your soul, that is outside the physical body, outside of the physical reality, and enveloping the physical body as a whole. So the destructive intelligence, in order to maintain dominion over your idea, your creative experience, has to convince you that you are more of the body and less of the soul. And it goes on over generations. So the biggest lies are the easiest ones to get by if you just maintain it over a certain amount of time. And this is how I present like the flat earth talk, is mostly about questioning your reality, questioning the individuals, the entities that have who are obviously vested in creating a movie reel for you to live and understand as your connection with, actually, which is a disconnection with the earth plane. When they say you are just star stuff from a cosmic mistake, the Big Bang, into dinosaurs, the dinosaur illusion, into the monkey evolution theory illusion. This is all to create that animalistic behavior, which is another separation from your essence, your true essence. The political scene is just the the higher version, or the higher version of the separation grid, to create a reality based upon powerlessness and hopelessness, where everything is backwards and upside down. And the way it's maintained like that is through ignorance and through doggy treats, pretty much. So this is why I reference a lot of the transhumanism stuff, because this is the so-called positive scene that we get, that gets delivered to us, for us to just be okay with the destructive intelligence reality. So it's kind of like building a castle on top of a destroyed area that is radioactive, and it will ultimately get people sick over time, and it will constantly be deteriorating for the masses in order to build it back up. So that's the busy work. This is why everybody needs to be caught up in the busy mentality. So we get locked into these ideas of climate change, global warming, whatever NASA puts out, whatever the university system puts out, whatever the politicians put out. These individuals have none of your best interests at heart, if they have a heart at all. That's obvious to understand when you just step back and realize, like, what's really going on here. Who do we call the so-called powers that be? What do they represent? When you go back in time, you can understand very easily, you can trace back very easily where this stuff goes if you approach it from just actually like an elementary perspective, like a child would. Okay, well, what happened at this time frame, and then what happened at this time frame? Why did this happen? That's the main thing. That's like the crucial question that is ignored by the system as a whole, is why. Because and this is why kids ask why all the time. Why? And the kids are not asking why anymore, or as much, because we are so distracted, and technology is the biggest distraction, and they're selling it into your idea of human evolution through transhumanism and social media, and the addiction to your idea of who and what you really are, based upon the sandcastle that's on a radioactive, destructive area. But that's not who and what you are. But as long as your kids and generations over time have been convinced that that's your reality, then and you are creating your reality, then you will exist in the space that you've created for yourself. And if you are bombarded by information that is telling a false story, so in like an individual who is who's being kidnapped, and then they get into that mindset of adjusting to the kidnapper reality, to where they're just like okay with everything. That's basically what has happened on the collective scale and on the individual scale, and it's being hidden behind the so-called nice things that we have within the American dream, that's all built on top of genocide and massacres, and the technological industrial age, transhumanism. Everything that you can understand that has come from the colonial grid as a whole is based upon separating you from understanding the actual storylines that are going on. And that's expanded all the way into this so-called alternative news. So it's hidden in plain sight, basically, like these pyramids. The information is there. The essence, that's actual proof that our ancient ancestors were far superior in intellect and understanding science and spirit, alchemy as a whole. And if we are distracted enough with what we understand is our reality today, then we won't we won't look into what the distraction has told us not to look into. So this is how everything is hidden in plain sight. So like the last two videos I made, the Young Turks, Vice, Vox, Coast to Coast, Ancient Aliens, all of these so-called conspiracy shows, they put this information out there, but if you don't have any foundations or roots to tap this stuff into, then it won't make any difference for you. This is why I made that other video about David Icke, and I waited to make a video on David Icke because I wanted to see like where he was, because he's basically just been repeating himself for the last 20 years, saying that he's been talking about this for the last 20 years. Yeah, we understand that. But what is your actual intention here? And when the whole Brexit thing happened, he actually put out a video talking about, we did it. And that's when it clicked over for me, and I was like, okay, I can see where this is coming from now, because I was already looking with my my microscope in my own way at his style, because I never saw any connection with the ancient indigenous people. He talked about the Dogon here and there, but he never really goes into, not saying that he should or anything like that. He's doing what he's supposed to do, but in my perspective, he's no different than any of these other distractionary channels who are just basically filling your space with evidence of something, but not really locking it into anything else. So it's obvious with the Young Turks. It's obvious with Alex Jones. That sort of algorithm of information being hidden in plain sight is another way to dumb individuals down. So this is why, and the collective as a whole, so this is why we don't know like what to research or what to do or where to put this stuff, is because, you know, we're bombarded by so much information, we're flooded by information, but it really doesn't matter because it just seeps through the holes that we still have within our own essence. So you can download as much information as you want into your reality, but if you yourself are filled with holes, are just like, you'll get it, it'll work first, it'll feel a certain way for a second, but it'll eventually just deteriorate into or disintegrate into nothingness, because you don't have anywhere to hold on to. You don't have anything to hold on to that with, and it has nowhere to sit. There's no foundation, there's no roots. So that's when people ask me, like, what should we do? Where should I look and research? Start with your own your imagination, yourself. Another example of this, of hidden in plain sight and distractionary stuff, is the New Age idea. And the New Age is based upon reconnecting with spirit on so many levels, but that's another way of being hidden in plain sight, is that you get so overwhelmed with and don't make these connections. That's the main thing. That information, those realities, those understandings, those teachings don't get tied in to the ancient teachings. Those teachings and those realizations of your chakras, energy, spirit, consciousness as a whole doesn't get locked into what has already been experienced in this reality already. And it the reason why we don't trace it back to that is because if we go into that realm, we're going to start to unveil a deeper part of ourself, which is more of the physical reality, which is heavily locked into the distractionary grid. This is why the New Age has this idea of, well, I'm not going to look at that stuff. That's their reality, that they are creating that experience. That is the orchestrated version of love and light, oneness and connection, but really another separation program that is hidden in plain sight. and you don't look at what is right in front of your face and make the connections, because it's hard work. It's basically like going back to school. So you have to ask questions. And when you understand and think about oneness and all this, then you take that to the extreme, and then people just kind of say, well, your race or your culture or your history doesn't matter anymore. And that's the biggest mistake that you can do, is to throw out your essence, as basically throwing the physical reality out of the window, and your true connections, your beingness, your divine essence, purpose of the physical reality experience as a whole out of the window. You're defeating the purpose on so many levels. So these are the extremes of how we get enveloped in certain perspectives and don't really connect those dots. And these alternative news sources are based upon that hidden in plain sight perspective, and stuff like CERN and all the stuff like I mentioned before, this preposition to keep you from going into, not only keep you from going into the depths of that, but keep you distracted, keep you busy, keep you emotional, keep you in the reactionary state of being, and you'll just be looking for prescription drugs. So like when I started looking into the New Age, it felt really good because I was making connections and understanding information that I had never done before and never made connections with before. But if I hadn't challenged myself to see that this is not it, I'm not here for myself, this is not just for me, this is an ongoing journey. If you really want to understand oneness and that connection with spirit, then you can't have any separation between you and the Syrian children who are washing up on the beaches. There's no separation there. So where does that fit in your reality? Where do the ancient indigenous people fit in your reality that are still being massacred today? How does that matter to you? How does that reality factor into your everyday life? Not to wear it as something to weigh you down, but to empathize with it and compassionately understand it, so that is actually closing those gaps. So whatever information that you fill yourself with through your own curiosity and imagination in the future will have somewhere to sit. It will have roots. So when you understand the relationships of the melanated people to the earth plane and the sun and nature, the indigenous people connection to their stories, their ancient cosmologies, their relationships with the animals and the spirits and the tree spirits and just nature as a whole. When you understand all these things, because it can take an entire lifetime to do this stuff, so there's always something there. And the more you understand about the physical reality, the more you'll be able to anchor of the energies from your higher self, and then you will start to eventually start to activate some kind of a more vibrant journey and a more vibrant style. It'll catch, the tread will catch, but it has to come from the inside out. And this is what the entire distraction grid is based upon. It bombards you from making that connection, bombarding you from going into that space, because you're locked into giving your power away to a politician, or being in that hopeless space of, well, this is already done, and we're just gonna have to do what we got to do based upon like what the so-called powers that be do. So that there's a different perspective there's a different energy between facing your reality from a defensive position and understanding your reality as the allness, the defensive and offensive perspectives from the inside out and on the collective space. So I would recommend more for people to understand who who and what you are. Like, where do your peoples come from? Where do these stories begin? And it'll make a deeper connection with yourselves. Like, first, like for me, like starting out for me, just questioning like, who the hell told me that I'm Mexican and black? Like, or Mexican and African American? Like, what the hell does that even mean? That's just empty terminology. It's an empty label. Since I didn't like labels anyway, it was easy for me to just be like, all right, I need to find this stuff out. So-called white people, like, you're not white. You have an actual history. You have an essence. White is a mindset. White is an idea to create a movie reel to go against black. And as long as that program is playing out, just like male against female and the patriarchal system and the matriarchal system, that whole thing, it's to pin the collective against itself so that the so-called powers that be can maintain the illusion of being in control or being in power. But when you start to understand and question your reality, like, what were the connections between the pyramids, the people of the people of the pyramids? How are these structures built? Where did this precision come from? Like, actually answering these questions. And if you can't answer these questions, at least holding yourself accountable for that information to come in at some time, and using that information as like a balance point to perceive other information. So like when you can see these pyramids that exist all over the world, you can see the relationship that the indigenous people had with nature. You can see today what this colonial program is doing to nature, from the inside out and the outside in. The rainforest being destroyed. They're talking about climate change and global warming, stuffing everybody into these cities that are just like totally meant to make you sick, make you codependent on the system as a whole, and make you reliant on a separation program. Like, as vibrant as this reality is, as each individual is, as beautiful as the earth plane is, we stick ourselves in these boxes and say, oh, well, there's climate change and global warming going on. And then once the finger gets pointed at you and say, well, you're doing this. Wait a second, what's going on with all these corporations and all these big money programs and the fiat currency system and the military industrial complex and the prison industrial complex and the oil industry, and that connection to government, and that connection to going to war, and that connection to mind controlling your children with commercials and recruiting ads when they're still in elementary school and on the radio station, like all this stuff. That's another rabbit hole to at least understand. But once we don't make these connections, see that when you start to make those connections, it will inherently take the power away. It will inherently take the power away, the illusory power over you. And then once that power, because the thing is that what I've noticed is that the more fear that we have, it stops you from actually going further into yourself and going further into understanding stuff that's outside of yourself. So there's a fear of losing friends. There's a fear of losing whatever. There's a fear of losing a part of yourself when you start to question your reality. And now you filled your reality up with more information. That is changing who and what you are. And when you start changing who and what you are, you start challenging your relationships. And when you start challenging, people don't want to challenge their relationships. They don't want to challenge. So if you don't want to challenge your external relationships, you're definitely not going to challenge your internal relationship, and vice versa. So this is where it's so easy to be consumed with the distractionary grid. And when you are constantly surrounded by connections to the stars, connections to your ancestors, connections to the blood that is still wet, the blood that's still everywhere. I mean, you can't look anywhere without seeing blood, and that's uncomfortable. But once you start to empower yourself to really engage in your reality of understanding, then it won't affect you as much, because you are on a space, you are in a higher vibration from your internal space that is more engaged in transmuting that energy as opposed to looking the other way. There's a difference there, and that shit exists in the ethers. First and foremost, it takes a while to manifest down to your physical body, but once you start connecting with the free and open space of your etheric body, then there's nothing that can fuck with you. You are on your own. You're on your own energy space. You're on your own mission. See, the mind control grid is about stealing your mission, stealing your soul journey, and distracting you. And then once you get to some kind of happy space, which is what a lot of people do in the new age, they get into that space and then they just say, "Oh, well, I'm good here. I've done all I needed to do, and now this is done. Now I'm just gonna do this, and that's good." But that closes the reality of you understanding that you are on a constant expansion space. You are constantly learning. You are constantly, if you are not constantly expanding and learning in some kind of way, or at least being open to that, then you are manifesting your artificial ego as your reality, and you're boxing yourself in. And that is different from making a constant step closer to your higher self, which is a constant space connection with the Most High essence, your ancestors, your guides, your spirits. It all works together, and we've had information left for us by our ancestors that would last forever. These stones, language written in stone, the hieroglyphics, the ancient, the Aboriginal people in Australia, the indigenous people, the Mayas, the Hopi, all the indigenous people all over the world, telling the same exact story in their own language, in their own style, with their own paint, with their own tools, telling the same story. Once we start to see that story exists, then that will also inherently disassemble the distraction and control grid as a whole, because that cannot be controlled. That is the essence. Excuse me. There's a purpose, there's a meaning to all this stuff. And if we get consumed by the distractionary grid, then that's mission complete for the destructive intelligence. So when I mention like flat Earth, and the jury's still out for me. I mean, nobody has proof of the flat Earth, but from how I feel it, there's more information just from basic observation that we are existing on the Earth plane, and also tapping into the ancient stuff that's there too. It makes more sense to me. So, and it also makes a deeper connection with nature, the sun, the moon, the cycles. Everything makes more sense. So that's like a starting point. But you can't stop there. This is what happens in the whole so-called flat earth community and top brass and all that stuff. They think they've discovered some shit. They think that's just like Christopher Columbus. Like, we discovered America. What the fuck you mean you discovered America? We've been sitting here for thousands of years. What you mean you didn't discover shit? How you just gonna come in here and install some religion, install some way of life, some civilization, tell us to live in these funky ass disease-ridden villages, and that's the way, and we're savages? Who the fuck do you think you are? This is basically what has happened today. the individuals who are and the collective, the communities who don't affiliate with that reality, even though we might live in these communities, these cities, our etheric bodies, our essence is not giving in to this bogusness. This is why we are so distracted by technology and transhumanism and all that other stuff. And I focus a lot on technology and these counterweights like the Young Turks and the Lib TV and Coast to Coast and Ancient Aliens, because the more individuals start to tune into themselves and their natural history and start to empower themselves out of the distraction grid, out of the hopeless space, that helps everybody. It sends shockwaves to everybody. Every single thing starts to send a shockwave. So I can make a video and then somebody can make a meme, and then that one meme will, trigger an idea for somebody else. And then that idea will be shared with somebody else. And then it's an ongoing thing. That's just one version of understanding it. Energetically, you can just see a constant uptick of individuals sharing a piece of themselves with other people from the soul essence, without any attachment, without any expectations, without any judgments, and just being like, this exists to exist. Why? Because there's some bullshit that exists out there that is killing people, that is separating people as a whole and destroying nature. And if an individual has the ability to share some art or some ideas that can connect people, then by all means, why not? And this whole American dream, the ego, the artificial ego space, take care of this is all, it's all you, the you. Even in the orchestrated New Age version, which is just the precursor to the New World Agenda stuff, they're going to sell you a new religion, they're going to sell you a new control grid and give you whatever kind of doggy treats in order for you to just be okay with everything. Imploding the dollar, imploding the banksters, imploding the fiat currency system as a whole in order to replace it with something else. Imploding the fast food industry and all these corporations in order to replace it with another control grid. And if we don't get ahead of that space, then we'll fall subject to it. Because once you're engaging in it, you're actually affecting the whole. So take one thing at a time. For people who are asking, like, where should I go? What should I do? Don't have any expectations on yourself. You can only do so much every day. You're only an individual, but you are a reflection of the allness. So you have the ability to tap into that space and tune in through this is why every single little thing has a divine essence. This is why the physical reality, the body as a whole, has a divine essence. So when people get so caught up in like the Pleiades, the Orions, the star constellations, the star people, they have a tendency to separate from the ancient cultures here, as if it doesn't matter. So how can you make a connection with the Orion, the Arcturians, and the Pleiadians, and all these information threads? Know that there's ancient connections here that have been genocided and massacred. Know that exists, and then act like it doesn't exist. There's a gap there, and a lot of people fall through that gap. A lot of energy falls through those gaps, individually and collectively. So we have to close these gaps. So to break it all down, pretty much, as far as how I was observing, like what I tag on these videos, and how I see it, as I explained to a friend of mine the other day, it's really about, like, so the flat earth is a connection with your with nature, with culture, with your history, the ancestors, and spirit as a whole, creative intelligence, and also an understanding of the destructive intelligence when you see what the globe model has done to the individuals as a whole and the collective as a whole. When you see what the colonial system has done to us as a whole and what we've allowed to be done. So that essence there is really more focused on nature, how I present it, because when I speak on the Mandela effect and how that exists, that's more talking about I'm coming from a place of a collective consciousness. So when you understand that you are not the body, that you are more the spirit, then you can understand that information doesn't exist in your body. It more exists in your connection, your etheric connection to, or the Akashic connections to everything, to all that is. So everything is encoded in the allness memory bank. So how I'm seeing the Mandela effect is a reflection of us disassembling the destructive intelligence grip on the collective consciousness, and us having blips of understanding that connection and that information database that isn't only about like what your history, what your previous lives were about, and the whole new age stuff and all that stuff. It's really about a real-time expression, a real-time understanding. And the individuals, and this is where the split comes in for the monkey minds who have bought into the colonial university system program, who will believe in the evolution program and believe in the transhumanism program and just say, well, that's just all poppycock, that's just some whatever, those are crazy conspiracy theorists. Those individuals, that's the reality they would like to live. They are the gods in that reality, just like this destructive intelligence, the political scene and the university system. They're trying to make themselves out to be God by promoting the atheism program. That's what the whole evolution system is about. So if you believe in a system that system is based upon making itself God, then you will convince yourself that you are that limitation God, not the essence manifestation of the Most High, but the boxed in artificial ego version of creating the idea of being a God based upon the physical reality sucked into the destructive intelligence. There's a difference there. This is how that magic can work, because it's reflective of the essence that everybody actually is. This is why they use that bully program and say, well, you can't be serious talking about flat earth. Come on, guys. Well, come on, we have evolution, we have the Big Bang, we have physics to back this stuff up. You're just crazy. That is the idea of God in a boxed in reality. And this is that split that's happening because people are from the 51st percentile to the 49th percentile, wherever you fall in. If you are separating yourself and have completely separated yourself, you'll fall into that space of, well, my reality is based upon monkey evolution and computer technology, social media, and whatever the university system tells me. But if you are even in the in the space of opening up to letting go and understanding that you are the soul manifestation from your higher self to the Most High, having guides, having ancestors, having an existence outside of the physical reality, that's a different world. It's literally a different world. And how I'm seeing the Mandela effect is that's like a little peek into, like, are you gonna believe your ego and like correct yourself when you actually believe something, but since it doesn't make any sense, you now create like a reality to kind of believe in. There's a difference there. That's that insecure, hopeless state of being. It's the codependent reality. It's like, fill my space, Google. Give me the answer. Oh, Google. Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. I was wrong. My memory's off. Yeah, it's Berenstain. It's not Berenstein. It's that whole mentality is actually separating you from your creative intelligence on so many levels. You have no confidence in yourself. When you have no confidence, you will have no willpower. When you have no willpower, you have no creative fire. You have no fire that is directly related and referenced to, reflective of that most high fire. So your fire is basically being put out by the artificial ego, replaced. So when you are disconnected from your history, when you are disconnected from your ancestors and the storylines as a whole, when you don't understand what has happened here, and you simultaneously create an idea of what has happened here and what is continuing to happen here, then your fear will actually determine your reality over your essence, your soul. So are you going to fear yourself into an illusion, or are you going to reconnect with your soul and at least be open to question the reality outside of the illusions that are holding down not just the few, but all of your brothers and sisters all over the earth plane? Excuse me, including the individuals who consider themselves to be successful. You're no different than anybody else. We are no different than those little kids washing up on the beaches because they had to escape a military-industrial complex through the fiat currency illusion and the maritime admiralty system illusion. This is how far we when I bring this stuff up, when I share, is because it's crucial. If we don't expand to the outside of the box, then we will be caught up within the box. So when people talk about overpopulation, climate change, and global warming, and they don't trace those things all the way back to their roots and realize that this is heavily based upon illusion and heavily based upon the so-called powers that be creating this illusion and creating the problems themselves. The system as a whole is rotten, is diseased. So like people like the Young Turks, they're trying to fix the system or make the illusion of trying to fix the system. It's not meant to be fixed. It's meant to make you sick. It's meant to separate you as a whole. And this is a very crucial time in our lives right now where so much is up for grabs as far as change is concerned, that if we don't understand how these stories are all interconnected, then you will fall into there's going to be people who fall into that artificial peace grid, that artificial security grid when the new world agenda kicks over. And there's people who are going to fall into the CERN mind control program of, this is what your reality is all based upon, and whatever NASA comes out next, and SpaceX, and whatever the university system, whatever your controllers from the colonial expansion program put out there, that's basically the difference. Are you going to allow other entities to create your reality? Or are you going to understand your reality from the soul level, from the inside out? And every single piece of information, every ancestor matters. Every piece of information that is connected to your body, your genetic codes, there is no more importance. And this is the storyline that's going to be told to you. Your quantum essence is more important than your physical reality. This is equal. In order for this physical vessel to be able to house the space of your soul, it has to be as divine, equally divine in some kind of essence. the shit that gets piled on top, like people get overweight and sickness and disease, is because that stuff manifests within your mind, that from the separation from the soul through your mind, creating that space, then manifests in your body. So if we don't understand how we have been psychologically manipulated into a slave system, then that will manifest eventually into a physical disease program. And this is why the medical industry is so running rampant. This is why the genetically modified food is designed the way it is, in order to profit off of your separation. So it's not just separating yourself from a healthy style of living, but ultimately it's just separating you from your psychological power, your cultural connections, your spiritual connections, and your imagination, individually and collectively. So yeah, to close it all out, my main focus with these videos is to help the individual and the collective understand the relationships between nature, your relationship to nature, your relationship to consciousness, and your relationship to the Most High Spirit as a whole. And everything is connected here, and your meaning and your purpose will start to float to the surface as we get rid of the extra weight that has been weighed down on us for so long. So like when people ask a lot of the times, like, what do I do? Like, it's really about, how I see it is more about stop doing what is negative, or stop doing what is weighing you down in so many ways. That can take an entire lifetime to do that. Some people take forever. Because there's so much that we do on a regular basis. If I had to recommend anything for anybody who ever asked me at all, what should I be doing? Focus more on what you are doing that is counter to what your highest is or could be. And knowing that people are going to take entire lifetimes. It is an entire lifetime because you're as much as you expand, you're going to take on things here and there that are not going to be for your highest. And people are going to challenge you all the time. Your reality will challenge you, and it will weigh down on you depending on the frequency, the time frame, and everything. Get outside of the density, but understand your physical reality simultaneously. So that's basically it. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for supporting this channel, everybody, and I do appreciate it. So until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.